Sorry. I like to present a model from my native. It's called Malabar. Centuries back, in early first species, there was a sustainable development state because of the religious freedom. I like to present about that. Before that, just I express the strong contempt and all attacks and condolence to the victims. Support freedom was happening this time. From that, it's a struggle for prevent terrorism with sublime mind and sacrifice, with the beauty of harmony and freedom. It was happened in the early Malabar. It was not now. It was once. It was capable to love the slogan of uniting people irrespective of their religion, caste, and their color. Not now. It was the history of Malabar earlier. So I believe that the all Malabar model will be applicable in current generation to uplift, to encourage the youth. Because our early leaders, early Malabar rulers, they were ready to accept any kind of religion, any kind of caste and color to Malabar. This region earlier, it was long place. Now Malabar is not existed because it's sometimes familiar with as the name of some institution or some jewelry or some other things. The actual this area is not existed now. Just take your attention to the whole history of the things, the periplus of Erythraean Sea that mentioned our Malabar in BC first. At that time, it was a state with much development. It was mentioned as a state with much development. Even the Greeks, people from the Europe used to come over there to collect their material. Even we believe that in 4,000 years back, the ivories and teakwood to the King Solomon palace was taken from our place. But we don't have historic evidences for that. But the periplus is and it is just to show the root of periplus. You can see how it was important at that time, this place. All these places were Malabar, and the Christian community, they came over from the Italy to there, and they settled over there. It was the most developed area at that time in the world. You can see from this. It's a court. The place name was Musiris. Now it's not available. It's not there. Nobody in our locality in Malabar. You come and ask. Musiris. They may not be knowing the place. We have new names, new things for that. But in first century and second century, people from Aden and Arabian Sea all were driving to there to collect their precious spices and all in our place. As I mentioned earlier, according to Christian traditions, Saint Thomas Apostle came there and he himself propagated Christianity in our place. But even for that, we don't have any historic evidences because it's prehistoric time. And later on, when Jews lost their homeland, they also came to our place and they settled over there. It was such a wonderful place. It was that much developed in those areas. Why it happened? It was because of the open-mindedness of our rulers. It was because of their approach to the religion, and they were ready to accept any type of people to their area. That just I mentioned. Then what happened? We have synagogues, we have church, but in the early this century, all Jews left our place. We now miss the Jews. It's a synagogue in our place. We also have traditional Jew street over there, but we miss Jews in the street. What happened? All went back to Jerusalem. This is the picture from our Jew street. We call it's a Jew street. Even you visit over there in Cochin. Some of the delegates, I think they have been there in Cochin. They can see churches and the synagogue, also the mosque all together. And even not in the case of that development, even when the rulers, they were making some kind of documents, they called all the people living over there, especially when they made the Terishapalli copper plate to allow some land for the Christians. They were calling Muslims as the witness to sign over the plate. It was the first document we found 1849 that Muslims from other part of the world, especially from Arab and Kufi, who wrote in Kufi letters, they signed in Kufi names in this document for the Christians. This ruler was giving land to the build a church, but it was witnessed by the Muslims. It was because of this harmony and tolerance we could achieve that kind of development in earlier time. Yes, that I mentioned, generosity of compassion of our compassion to new settlers by our rulers, great leaders of Malabar. The rulers of Malabar were sympathetic to those migrants and good to grant special privileges and concern. That we have seen the copper plate, and just I show this old Malayalam, but it's not used. Even these letters and the things is not existed in our place. It was very old. Malabar, there's just something about the Malabar. Malabar, just I am rushing about the things. Malabar was a strategic course for international trade and commerce. It was still 16th century. It was till 16th century. It was a very important point for foreigners and traders. Cargo ships from all the places, even from China, even from Greek, all came over there and they collected the things and they allowed. Just mention because I'm telling about my place and just to mention the things I just caught Ibn Battuta, the old traveler. He was telling, I have never seen a safer road than this in 13th century. He was telling it was the safest place. How it became safer? Now in this world, now in current situation, we are all fearing terrible things, the attacks and all things. How it became safer? Because the Christians, Jews and Muslims and Hindus, the ruler was Hindu. We all were living together and we were cooperating each other. Just I like to take your attention, just from historic, his very, very big shipwreck happened there. He lost his wife and his all people over in our Calicut port in 13th century. That's a picture drawn by an artist of that. He came there to fetch his ship to China. That time he was telling he found 13 Chinese ships. There was totally 110 ships in Calicut port, but now there is no port in Calicut. Why it was? Just I found in my research that the Muslims and Christians and Hindus all were moderate at that time. They were not extremists in this or that end. They were moderate. Early Malabar communities, along with Muslims, had accepted moderates as a way of life. Just Christians and Jews, they all were moderates, and even Muslims, they were following the moderate terminology that mentioned by Quran. And I always we tell the new generations and new youngsters that we have to follow the moderate terminology that taught by all the or the holy books of the religion of Islam or Christian or Jewish. This one quote I take just to attention of you, because now the terrorism is known in the name of Islam. So I like to quote this on here that just we made you of moderate. I don't know whether all the Muslims are moderate or not. Then it's very important that the word jihad, that's also very complicated nowadays. That we Malabar people, we heard this word in 16th century first. It was taught by the scholars. The word was introduced in Malabar in 16th century, but that was the word of harmony and tolerance at that time. Because the Muslim scholars, they were urging Muslims to fight against Portuguese to protect the reign of Hindu king. There was harmony. Just I mentioned some books for the reference who do the research on the things. This is a book by Zainuddin Maktoum first. He was a scholar in 16th century Malabar. He wrote a poem. It was, in those times, all the things were in poetic. So he wrote the poem that comprised 177 lines. In that, he urges Muslims. He is teaching the word jihad to fight for establishing or to retaining the power of Hindu king, not to establish Islamic state over there. This is another book just by his grandson, Sheikh Zainuddin Maktoum II, Tuhfat al-Mujahideen. This is also the first historic book from our place. This is the first historic book from Malabar region or from southern India. So this also just urging Muslims to do jihad for protecting. What time? Time. Okay. Okay. Then another one, Qazi Muhammad. It's these manuscripts are available in British Library. He's also forcing Muslims to do jihad to protect the reign of Hindu king, not to establish an Islamic state over there. Quickly going over this. Then this is just I mentioning that time we all were living harmoniously over there, and Jews and Christians and Muslims, they developed their own special art forms to be in part of that. This is the traditional Hindu art form that we call Thiruvadir Kali. And then what happened, the Christians also found their own art. They developed Margam Kali. It called the Margam means the way of faith. They were making their own religious things and incorporating with our Hindu culture, that Margam Kali, Opana, Kol Kali. All these were quid pro quo of cultural relations we seen in Malabar. This is also another one, but all these were assimilation and cooperation between the Muslims and Hindu cultural things. You see that this is the Christian dance over there, but just they incorporated the original things. This Islamic, the Muslim cultural things, they also learned or they just adopted the traditional art forms of Malabar. Because I take your attention to the how they were developing harmony and tolerance among the group, and how the state became sustainable in those time. Even the folk songs, everything they developed, and they were being. And just taking your attention to the Makkah of Malabar, how the scholar Zainuddin Maktoum, he was proud enough to say that do jihad for a Hindu king, or the how just. I like to take your attention to when he was building the mosque. He was building a big mosque over there. He was a scholar. He studied in Al-Azhar in 16th century. When he came back, he would be able to bring an architect from Middle East to build a mosque over there. But he did never do that. He was choosing an architect from Hindu community to build a mosque for him. Just when he started the graduate school, first graduate school of Malabar, he just adopted the traditional way of lighting the lamp. It was a Hindu tradition, but he used it and he made it. Now, even now, this century, the Muslims or the other people, the radicals, they argue that Muslim may not lit the lamp, But in 16th century, this great scholar, he learned in Al-Azhar, he studied in Makkah, but he was ready to lit the lamp and do incorporate the things which were the practice of the region at the time. Just I show you the picture of the traditional lamp that used in the mosque, but it's the same lamp used in the Hindu temples, and you can see the other photos of assimilation. Just because we don't have much time over this. This is the same architectural forms that we see in both. And also in Christian, you see the churches. These two are churches. They were also ready to incorporate the traditional architectural forms to the church. And you see the lamp. It was the very old lamp of the stone that we used earlier in front of the temples. The Christians they adopted it. It was the main force of the sustainability, or it was the it was what brought sustainability over in our Malabar. So just I take the first mosque of India. It's in Malabar, not in North India. It's in our place, the first mosque, the second mosque, all same as the temples. But now I'm winding up that I believe that history of Malabar will be a model for the current generation to analyze better mode of coexistence with others. Early settlers never tried to develop a Roman Christianity or Arab Islam in the region, except that they really tried to integrate regional culture, language, architecture into religion. And I pass this message that this is the message that we have to give to the new generation and youngsters, that incorporation that can bring sustainable development for the community. Thank you.